morning. Is this on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can all hear me? Thank you. Louder. Good morning. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought about doing this for like the last couple of weeks, and now I'm here doing it, so it's a little hard. Thank you all for coming. I am Jody Sutherland, Bob's daughter, and I will be here. I'm here to welcome you and to speak on behalf of me and my sister Robin. Dad died just shy of his 99th birthday. And Robin and I always said for years, when Dad dies, no one's going to be surprised, but we will be shocked. And that's exactly what happened. She was overseas, we were on the phone, it was just shocking. It's very hard to lose a parent. But we are here to celebrate his very long life, and what a good long life it was. If it was up to Dad, I would walk you through all 99 years and take up all your time, but I won't do that. I'll just give you some highlights that I think you would appreciate me touching on. Dad was born in 1927 in Boston. He had one sister named Bunny. He spent a good part of his childhood not at home. He was actually, he went to boarding school, he went to sleepaway camp, he went to military school, he went to Brown University for a hot second, but and then he served in the military right after World War II, or at the end of World War II. And that was something he was very proud of. Interestingly, it's not something he talked about a lot when we were younger, but he talked about it a lot of recent years, and on things like Veterans Day, I would call him and say, "Happy Veterans Day, Dad," and he would say, "No, thank me for my service." That's what you say. I was like, "Okay, thank you for your service, Dad." So he changed his tune about that. But Dad was very, loved this country and was very proud of this country and referred to it as his country. And he lived through 14 presidents and enjoyed watching the way they all shaped the nation, or their interpretation of shaping the nation, and he had a lot of opinions about what they were doing, and he would like you to share those opinions, and if you did, you got on his good side, and if you didn't, he was just gonna make you sit and listen to his opinion as long as you would sit. And the other thing Dad was proud to say was that he was born when Calvin Coolidge was president, which really kind of makes you realize how old he was. So he spent most of his adult life in New York, where he went into the apparel industry, creating two different companies. One was Kratex Incorporated, the other, Cray for Kramer. The other one was Remark, which is Kramer backwards, because he's clever like that. And it was through that time in the 70s when he started Kratex that he built his relationship with JCPenney, which became one of the most important relationships in his life. Through JCPenney, he made friends that were more like family, and he had mentors, and it became part of his DNA. It certainly became something that we always talked about as children. I don't think Robin and I could think about any dinner or any time with Dad where JCPenney didn't come up, or someone from JCPenney, or we had to go see people from JCPenney, or go to Amelia Island with the JCPenney people. It was all JCPenney all the time. So at that time, in the 70s and 80s in New York, Dad in the apparel industry, servicing JCPenney and some other clients, I think he lived a big life and was flying high, literally and figuratively. He was, if I talked about his life, if someone didn't know my dad and I just talked about it, they would say, like, was your dad like a rock star? Like, he owned his own airplanes and he flew his own airplanes, and we had a chauffeur and a driver, and he would dance with A-listers at Studio 54 and travel with, you know, dignitaries and famous politicians and have all these crazy stories about what he did. He was very proud of his stories. He liked to tell everybody his stories. Somebody asked me earlier today if we have pictures of that time of his life, and thankfully we do not, because there weren't cell phones then with cameras. But it was an interesting time for Dad, and a fun time until it all kind of came to a crashing halt and into an end, thankfully. And that was around the late 80s when Dad found sobriety, and something he was very proud of, and that he worked very hard at through a spiritual program, and which is why in the back of the program at your seat is the St. Francis prayer, which is a prayer that's important to people who follow that spiritual path for sobriety. So that was a turning point in Dad's life. Certainly as his children, it was a turning point. Robin and I spent a lot of time back at that time going to meetings with Dad, his anniversary meetings, celebrating him. It became a big part of his world at that time. We were young and probably didn't understand it as much as certainly as we do today, but we were very supportive and proud of him. At that same time in the late 80s, JCPenney was relocating to Dallas. And so Dad told us he was moving to Dallas, which for two New Yorkers, we were like, well, what's in Dallas? And then I remember when Dad took us down here for the first time and we saw things like Tom Thumb and all the golf that he got to play, we got it, that it was going to be a good choice for him. And we saw Dad when he moved to Dallas a little bit in a different light. Robin and I were working at the time. She was at Calvin Klein, I was in advertising. We were in our early 20s, and when Dad came down here, of course it's a little foggy about the exact time, but it was soon after he moved down here that we got a phone call, before cell phones. I don't know how it happened, but we got a phone call that Dad was sick and he was rushed to the hospital, and I think we thought he was going to die. And Robin and I hopped on a plane and came down to Dallas. We were told that it was his heart and that he was in surgery and that he needed stents. And these were words we were like, we don't know what stents were. I was like, 23 years old. But we were in the hospital, we were supportive of Dad, and the doctor, the surgeon, was going to come out and speak to us and explain what had happened. And in walks Dr. Bonnie Floyd, like the most beautiful blonde cardiologist, surgeon. Like, I was like, sure, leave it to Dad. He probably faked this whole thing so this person could operate on. That would be very in keeping with Dad. So Robin and I had a good chuckle of like, yeah, this is typical. And anyway, the truth is that she did save his life. She has worked on him and kept him alive all these years, and we're very grateful for Bonnie for everything she's done, and a wonderful friend to Rob and I, really an extension of our family. So I thank you, Bonnie, for that. The other thing that happened at that time when Dad was in the hospital was Robin and I were sitting there. I think Dad was in the hospital bed, and I remember being on the floor. We were doing work, and there was a parade of flowers and balloons and all sorts of gifts that were coming for Dad. And we just looked at each other and we were like, people like him. Like, we kind of thought he was grumpy. And it was, we were like, I'm sorry, you must have the wrong room. I mean, literally, I'm not saying it to be funny. We were shocked. Because he was newly in Dallas, we didn't know anything down here, and he had a huge, he's 99 years old and filling this room today. So, you could imagine what it was like back then. And that made us feel very good. That he was loved and had a nice community for himself here. But by far, the greatest gift that came with his move to Dallas had nothing to do with Penny or golf. It had to do with him meeting Pawn. The love you know, as I got older, Dad would be almost unnecessarily honest with me about certain things about his past with his relationships. And it was, and you take it with a grain of salt, but there was something with his relationship with Pawn, what she meant to him and what they shared was something I'd never heard him talk about before. Just wasn't like him. He was just crazy about her. And Pawn, her undying devotion and caretaking to Dad was nothing short of heroic. I mean, Robin and I are so unbelievably grateful to you. We talk about it all the time. It is just remarkable. And then when Pawn put together this video, and we looked kind of back at their life together over like almost 30 years, we just thought they had a wonderful life. It's just such a gift. And we jokingly said we don't know what Dad did to deserve that, but whatever he did, he got it, and he had and it just it was a very good life, and he loved Pawn with all his heart, and so do we. There are a couple of a couple of things that for some reason when I was thinking about writing this and speaking about Dad, because Dad liked people to know what he thought, I thought, there's just like a couple of things I just want to list and say out loud. I don't know if it's just for me or for Dad, to let you know certain things about him that were important. The first is that he had a hard outer shell, but he was a real softie on the inside. And he loved dogs. And that's a really, a testament to the unconditional love that dog gives. He had a dog that he always talked about named Boots when he was younger, and then certainly with Pawn. When we grew up, we had a dog, but Ty and Gucci and Angel were his loves. And it just shows, he was just a softie. He preferred sappy romantic comedies to anything else, and he would watch Something's Gotta Give. I think he's watched it 100 times. If anybody wants to pay homage to Dad, go watch that movie. It would mean a lot to him. He was very annoyed that people did not appreciate Chris Christopherson to the extent that he did. He would tell you that people think of him as an actor, but he's really a poet and a songwriter, and so that really annoyed him. The other thing that annoyed him was that his favorite opera star, Renee Fleming, did not get recognized at the Kennedy Center Honors until recently, and he thinks he manifested that and had something to do with that. He liked the Dallas Cowboys, but he secretly always rooted for the Kansas City Chiefs. His drug of choice, by far, was Haagen-Dazs. Chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry, very simple and lots of it. He was an avid reader and a serious history buff. He addressed everybody by saying dear. That's something that I always hear. It came from Boston. His family used to say hi dear. When I hear dear for the rest of my life, I will think of my dad. He was much smarter than he admitted, and he was probably a better golfer than he admitted, but I don't know enough about golf. You all talked about that, but he always said it wasn't good, but I doubt that. Dad and I shared a huge passion for music. We were talking basically about, my favorite things to talk about were politics, football, or music. So depending on what was going on in the world, depends on what we would be talking about. But with music, at 98 years old, he would call me out of nowhere and just say, what do you think of Alabama Shakes? I'm like, how do you know who Alabama Shakes is? That's not a band a lot of people know. And then in the same breath, he would say, did you get Taylor Swift's second album yet? I mean, it was just, next album. It was unbelievable. So the thing that I want to say is that he had a sharp mind, and the thing I admire most about him aging was how current he stayed. And that's just a really good lesson for me and Robin, just to remember that you can be 98 and stay as current as you want. And that was Dad. He was curious, he was interested, he was hungry, and he liked an audience. So, if you would listen to him, he would talk. I just wanted to just end with, we have some other people who are going to speak, and I'm sorry I took up the most time, but I just wanted to do this for Dad and just say that I'm so grateful for all of you. Robin and I are both grateful for you being here and to this club for letting us, letting Dad be here all these years and share some wonderful memories here. And we will miss him terribly, but I also am so grateful for what a wonderful long life that was lived. So thank you. On the program, we don't have to do it in any specific order, but the next person can come up and speak. Thank you.
Well, that's a hard one to follow, actually. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Director of Facilities here at the club. And I'm not sure how Bob and I became really good friends, but I do. Mickey Zolak, the Zolak family here, he left him to me in his will. Because we used to do lunch together, and then we both got each other through Mickey's passing. But he was an interesting guy, and it's funny. I'll just tell a couple of quick stories. I told Jody I would talk. I don't talk in front of people a lot. First couple of years we talked, I'd get a phone call. He would say something. You know, cell phones dropped a lot then. And I would lose him. I would call him back and I would say, I lost you. Sorry about that, Bob. He'd like, no, I was done. We progressed where we would talk about the Stars game as it was going on. And he would actually say goodnight. So I really feel like we were good friends at the end. But we would do lunch, and he would always have something to ask or some point. And it's funny, a lot of it was history. So most of the times he knew most of it. I didn't. Finally figured out it's because he lived through it. So he was cheating. But he just wanted to show me he knew it. But he was, I knew Robin, Jody through him. Of course, he adored Pond. He was a soft guy. But he would tell you, it's his voice that would throw people off. He was just gruff. But I really, really am gonna miss him. And he brought a lot to everything. I gave him for one of his birthdays, I gave him a 1927 quarter. And I said, it's just like you. It's tough enough it's made it this far, and it's touched as many lives along the way as you have. And that's really how I feel about Bob. So, said I would keep it short, and so somebody bail me out.
Hello, my name's Mike Teague. I've been a member here for 41 years, come June. I met Bob when he joined here, but I didn't really get to know Bob until we had the women's locker room. Now used to be, forgive me, it used to be an all men's dining for lunch. And so we had a special round table, and forgive me, but it was called the asshole table. And so Bob would come in by himself and sit. Sometimes he'd come in by himself, and I started sitting with him and was mesmerized by the stories he gave. And so we became real good friends, and we go out to lunch and things like that. But a testimony to Bob is when I look around the room, is that here's Bob. He brings together Jews and Gentiles, Democrats and Republicans, men and women, and everybody's here to honor him. He was a great guy. I miss him. I told him I would never cry when he died. I did when I found out he passed away, but that's done with. He helped me open my mind up. His historical references were spot on, and he lived those things. It just mesmerized me that I enjoyed my time with him. And I made a big mistake. I saw him out here having lunch about 2 weeks before he passed. And I told him I was going to call him and go to lunch, and I didn't get around to doing it. So I miss that. wholeheartedly. So I'm sure he appreciates everybody being here. He was quite a guy, and he helped me become a better thinker and to open my mind up to current events and make my own mind up. Thank you.
Hey, I am Zach Zolik, and Bob is a close family friend, and more specifically, my dad Mickey's best friend. Over the years, my dad and Bob grew close, sharing countless meals together here at Glen Eagles. They'd banter back and forth almost daily about sports, television, happenings at the club, or anything else that was topical. Or perhaps more likely, something that was topical 40 to 50 years prior. When my dad passed about 11 years ago, my brother and I were fortunate enough to start catching some of those breakfast invitations ourselves. Bob would share stories about athletes, celebrities, and politicians, all well before our time. He took sport in quizzing us on modern trivia such as where the 1953 U.S. Open was played and who won. Oh, come on, Ben Hogan, I learned. Or who appointed Thurgood Marshall to the Supreme Court, LBJ, 1967. Additionally, in a way that only Bob could, he would bluntly and lovingly remind me that, how much he missed my dad and that he wished Mickey was the one sitting across the table, not me. I'd laugh and tell him, well, Bob, frankly, I agree. Bob would often tell me that Mickey was his best friend, but he wasn't sure if he was Mickey's. I don't unequivocally, the answer to that question was yes. As much as anything in this world, my dad appreciated Bob's sense of humor and wit and loved how easily it was to ruffle his feathers. As time went on, I started a family, and occasionally I would have the kids join us for breakfast. They thought it was cool to meet Grandpa's best friend, and perhaps even more so appreciated Bob teaching them what he considered the only acceptable way to order pancakes. Obnoxious amounts of whipped cream, strawberries, and 2 gravy boats full of maple syrup. They were quickly convinced, and to this day they insist on ordering their pancakes Mr. Kramer style. Thanks, Bob. When I think of Bob, I think of someone as sincere, caring, intelligent, and witty as I've ever known, all the while being so hilariously grumpy. I will miss seeing him get worked up by a refusal to allow him to pay for breakfast, him heckling me for not picking up the flagstick before I'm on the golf course, or him abruptly hanging up the phone mid-conversation without a goodbye. After my dad passed, Bob left me with one quote that always stuck with me. Our dead are never dead. Our dead are never dead to us until we have forgotten them. I love you, Bob. You won't be forgotten.
All right, I'm Bonnie Floyd. And yeah, it was pretty hilarious. I was pretty young when I met Mr. Kramer, and the girls were even younger. And they did look a little startled when I came out and pulled my surgical cap off, and I had all this blonde hair, and they're like, "Really, Dad?" I met Bob when he was not exactly stable. His health was kind of on the edge, very much on the edge. And his biggest concern, so I got him through that. And his biggest concern in the years after that was his girls. He really wanted to stay in shape, to have the years back with them that he had missed out on. And so we kind of came to an agreement like, okay, old boy, let's see what you can do. I'm there. So, Yeah, so almost 99. And he it was really hilarious. Pond would drag him in the office every 6 months, drag him in the office. I'd patch up whatever needed to be done, and threw a pacemaker in one here, and she'd drag him back to the office. And you all know him. You all know him well. You know the grumpiness, cantankerous, opinionated, and amazingly witty, humorous, and yet this inner gentleness, this absolute love, the spiritualness that he would mask over, as you saw him do over and over again. I just want to share with you his last visit. So Bob and I were very good friends. So whatever he said, there was the context, but then there was the unspoken words, and that affect that you have with people that you're very close to. When he came in a couple weeks before he died, he was different. He was different. He wasn't his usual edgy self. He wasn't throwing out the latest politics or the newest book or the greatest music. He didn't have his iPods in listening to some crazy opera. He was calm. He was absolutely calm. He was